We only have 6 species of marine turtles in the Indian Pacific Ocean region, and they're fairly easy to identify. Leatherback turtles don't have big scales. All of the other types of turtles, loggerheads, greens, hawksbills, have big scales on their back. All the turtles that have large scales on their back have a row of scales down the middle, have a row of scales either side, and then a row of scales on the outside edge. It's this row of scales either side of the middle that are the important ones to count for identification. Loggerhead turtles have 5 costal scales. These scales either side of middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scales. So that makes this a loggerhead turtle. For identifying a hawksbill turtle, again we're counting the costal scales, that's the row of scales beside the midline, and 1, 2, 3, 4 costal scales. Now, green turtles and flatbacks also have 4 costal scales. So we need to now count the number of scales between the eye and between this round scale here and the nostrils. And we see that this turtle has 4 scales, what we call prefrontal scales. So 4 costals and 2 pair of prefrontals equals a hawksbill turtle. To identify this turtle, big scales on its back says it's not a leatherback turtle. It's one of our hard-shell turtles. And again, we're counting costal scales, this row of scales that beside the midline. We've got 1 costal, 2, 3, 4 costal scales. And we must also then look at the scales at the front of the head and between the eyes, and in front of this small scale here, we only have 2 scales. And that combination of 4 costal scales and 2 prefrontal scales identifies this as a green turtle. If we were not out in the open ocean, but in coastal waters, we would find another species of turtle that also has 4 costals and 2 prefrontals, the flatback turtle. But the flatback turtle, instead of having a high dome carapace, the carapace is much lower and the edges are upturned, and it would be uniform grey for a flatback. Olive Ridley turtles are one of our smaller turtles. They tend to be uniform colour, usually grey or olive grey, and they have more than 5 costal scales on each side of the shell. That's more than 5 of those big scales down either side of the shell.